A win versus Japan, rejoice. But before that, through much of Pochettino's reign with the US men's national team, people were pretty angry. So why? The US men's national team no doubt have a golden generation at the moment. Just look at where these guys are playing and succeeding. Important players compared to the generations that preceded them. Christian Pulisic at Milan, Malik Tillman at Leverkusen, McKennie at Juve, Cardoso at Atletico Madrid, Robinson at Fulham, and on it goes. Impressive stuff, right? So in order to get the most out of a golden generation, you need a very competent coach. The talent gap can only get you wins in CONCACAF. It only goes so far, and even that hasn't been a guarantee lately. With Greg Berhalter out, Mauricio Pochettino was brought in, the most expensive or well-compensated US men's national team coach of all time. So how bad is it? I mean, worse than perhaps you expected, as some are questioning his job at this point. And what is going wrong?
It's full time, and it is a 2-0 defeat for the United States here against South Korea.
Now, let's start with honesty. One of the pillars of any good relationship, right? I am a self-admitting Pochettino skeptic. I can hold my hands up and say that, and anyone who has watched the channel will know that he lost me towards the end of his Tottenham career, and nothing since has been incredibly impressive. Things improved at the tail end of his season with Chelsea, I'll give him that, but nothing has wowed me. And so, how is he done with the US men's national team, or USMNT? With the talent at his disposal, they should be excelling in CONCACAF, right?
I think ever since Pochettino took over, we've regressed on almost everything, surprisingly.
That's Filippo, by the way, from Tactical Manager TV on YouTube, link below. Great friend of the channel who you may remember from some Brazilian coverage here. But hang on. His whole thing is covering the US men's national team. That's what his channel does, right? So you're telling me that it's not just a Canadian guy, me, Canadian, who happens to be a Pochettino skeptic that is being hypercritical on Pochettino. It's actually as bad as Filippo has said. So before Pochettino and the boys got a victory against Japan, a Japan that was heavily rotated and giving guys opportunities, Pochettino had a pretty unwanted record that was showing up everywhere in the media. Against top 30 opposition, he had 1 win and 7 losses. That 1 win, his first ever match in charge of the US, a 2-0 win over Panama in a friendly. They then went on to lose to Mexico, the aforementioned Panama, Canada, Turkey, Switzerland, Mexico again, and South Korea. So keep in mind, this video is looking at the totality of Pochettino's time and why people were/are worried, not just the latest results. But beyond results, I think the most worrying thing is that, well, Filippo, how does the US play? What are their tactics? What's their style?
That's a good question. Many people don't know. We don't know yet. We're not figuring out. Formation-wise, he's mainly going to 4-2-3-1. The team presses at times, I guess.
There's absolutely zero imprint that has been made. There is nothing about this side that you can say, yes, that's some Pochettino ball. They may not be getting the results, but we can clearly see the process. It's all very bland, milquetoast, very slow. I mean, stats actually came out from Stats Perform that state that of all the US men's national team coaches who have overseen at least 5 matches since 2010, Pochettino's ranks last as far as how quickly they move the ball forward, the stat being just 1.03 meters per second. It's slow and pondering without any dissection of the opponent.
It is possession-based. He wants to hold possession with the team and try to disorganize the opponent with the ball, but I just don't think that's how the US is built to play. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the players to do that.
Something did change against Japan, however, as Pochettino switched to a 3-4-3, and they looked better in the attack. Not Japan's best players out there, but you can definitely argue that it wasn't the USA's best players out there either. And here's something that I was really nervous about when it came to Luciano Spalletti taking over the Italian national team. Get ready for your mind to be blown here, but it goes without saying that international management and club management require two very different things. I know, shock. But what I mean by that is that these coaches who have systems or styles of play that require an extended amount of time for their players to understand or buy into, it's difficult for them to make a lot of progress with the national team. Spalletti already sacked by Italy, and in Pochettino's case, they are only defeating teams who are not the top sides in CONCACAF or the world, aka your Trinidad and Tobago's, Haiti's, Guatemala's, Venezuela's of the world, because nothing is really clicking.
These are not powerhouses and the results have been terrible. Like, these are teams that with the US hosting a World Cup, you would expect a few results here and there. Maybe win half of these games. He lost all of them.
And by the way, for just the 4th time in their history, the US men's national team have lost 6+ matches at home in a single calendar year. I mean, in his most recent club job, like we said earlier, it was in the latter half of the season where things started to improve. And that was a season in which Chelsea didn't have European football, so he had plenty of time to train his team. But speaking of time and his team, that's something that will be in short supply. Time, and something that some people think has been wasted under Pochettino. It's 1 year into Pochettino's tenure as the US men's national team head coach, and there is no identity in their play, nor is there an idea of who his guys are, who his core group of players are that will play in the 2026 World Cup. Why? There has been inconsistency and some baffling calls when it comes to, well, who are getting call-ups.
On top of that, the roster selections have been bizarre. He keeps calling certain MLS players that probably shouldn't be there, and then I keep talking extensively about this, and then people say, you're an MLS hater. I don't have issues with MLS players. I think there's plenty of MLS players that could make the US national team, would start and make the roster. My main issue is with the American MLS players. The best players in MLS are not American. So yeah, if you call up Ricky Puig healthy, he would probably start for the US national team. There's a guy named Messi. Would he not start for the US national team? Son. And many others. Not the case with the American players. The best American players are in Europe right now.
Now here's the list of the guys that did not make it into the September squad. A group of players that you could essentially make a second 11 out of, and they would be able to give the guys who were called up one hell of a game. Hey, maybe even beat them. But the worry is, well, it's twofold here. One, if a lot of these players aren't going to the World Cup, then the worry is that the guys who are chilling at home, well, in Europe mostly at this point, are they going to have enough time to get on board with Pochettino's vision, his tactics, and approach to the game? There are 3 windows left before the World Cup. That's 6 friendlies. And if a lot of the players from this September squad are some of Pochettino's chosen warriors at the expense of some of the guys playing in Europe, the other worry is the quality high enough to compete at the World Cup? It feels like a lot of experimenting, a lot of tinkering without coming to conclusions of any kind at this point.
2 days or 3 days ago, before recording this, right before the Korea game, he also implied that the main group is starting to understand what he wants. So is this the main group? Is he experimenting? How many of these guys does he see as the A roster? I don't know. I think using this window to still experiment with a lot of players that just watching them play for their clubs, you should know that they're not good enough. Like Tristan Blackman, for example, that plays for Vancouver and MLS. You should know that he's not good enough for the national team. I think it's moronic to do this for now.
And here's the thing, just as we don't know what Pochettino is thinking, the players don't either. There has been a lot of coverage on this, of Pochettino not communicating with the players since taking the job. He doesn't call to let them know what's up. He doesn't really check in with them. Perhaps the most infamous of such was when Christian Pulisic pulled out of the Gold Cup last summer, to which we recently found out from Pochettino himself that he and Pulisic didn't speak once over the summer. He never called him to try to iron things out, which you think would be of utmost importance when it comes to ensuring that your country's best player, perhaps of all time, is happy, and that there are great lines of communication between yourself and him, a holder of major sway in the locker room. Or how about this? Serginho Dest of PSV, one of the most important players for the US men's national team when healthy, confirmed this past May that he hadn't spoken to Pochettino one time since Poch was hired in September of 2024. Now, of course, Dest had an ACL injury and wasn't available to be called up, but not even a phone call?
He doesn't have to call them and be buddies with them, but like you said, Dest is seen as one of the best players of the team. Does it mean he has a locked-in spot? No, but maybe give him a call. It's like, how's the recovery going? Oh, is the knee feeling good? Okay, good. We're keeping track of you. Okay, just say that.
Tim Ream said that he doesn't communicate with them, doesn't call them, and when there are notable players missing from the squad, such as in this September squad, he doesn't call them to let them know why they weren't selected. Herc Gomez from ESPN, former US men's national team player, interviewed Joe Scally of Borussia Mönchengladbach and Giovanni Reina, and Gomez asked them if Poch had called them to give them an explanation as to why they weren't a part of this squad.
They both kind of looked at each other and said, no, very just blatantly.
A bit strange. No, another strange thing is taking a few shots at the US men's national team supporters on a few occasions, as Pochettino has done, complaining about how at home matches, the away support is often way stronger than the home support. A reality that has kind of always been the case given the reality of North America. There are a ton of expats. This has been the case for the coaches before him and will be the case for the coaches that follow as well. When you look at all of this so far and couple it with the fact that Pochettino has had some some Ten Hag-isms during his press conferences, aka saying the team played really well or was the best team out there when they so clearly were not. Couple those with the lack of communication, his weird call-ups, and his massive salary, and some are starting to accuse Pochettino of just not caring about this job enough.
We don't see many footages or reports of Pochettino attending a game in Europe, for example, to watch Americans. There was a report that he was on an Espanyol versus Atletico Madrid game, and Johnny was playing. Espanyol is his former club, so was he there to watch Johnny? We don't see that very often, where even with Berhalter you would see it. He would be in a Bundesliga game, be in London, he would be in Italy. What is he doing in between camps, right? Because the roster selections have been weird. It kind of feels like he doesn't understand the player pool.
Let's remember, the USA is hosting a World Cup alongside Mexico and Canada in 2026. Mexico is playing well again, dominating the USA in the Gold Cup final. And as for Canada, under Jesse Marsch, we've been completely revitalized and have a coach who is able to galvanize our talented pool of players. The USA, there are some that are saying that they fear they could get grouped at the World Cup, just as they became the first ever host nation for Copa America to not make it past the group stage. So next month, October 2025, will be a very important window for Pochettino and the US men's national team. The theory being, we will see Pochettino's core group. No more experiments with squad selections and choosing guys that shouldn't be there in places of guys that should be there. Giving opportunities to people is fine, but that should have been the priority in his first couple of windows, not when you're this close to the World Cup. Coupled with the poor results and everything else, it got to a point where people were actually wondering whether they should consider going with a different coach ahead of the World Cup in 2026, often citing Morocco sacking their coach ahead of the 22 World Cup, then going on a run to the semifinals as inspiration. But after the formation change against Japan, coupled with Pochettino saying how he has identified some of the guys who could make a run for the World Cup roster from this current group, fans are a little bit more optimistic. No, it wasn't the real Japan side, it was mostly J-League players, but they've seen signs of progress now and a glimpse into Pochettino's potential vision for the US men's national team. So the hope is, for them, this general feeling of disconnect between Poch, the players, and the fans is in the past. All right, guys. That's it from me, and that's also the end of our international window coverage. We can bring that to an end now and get back to club football, though there was some Champions League in there as well. Forgot about that. I'm Adrian. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you to Filippo as well. Check out his channel for more US men's national team coverage, link below, and I'll see you later. Ciao.